而家就同步直播緊啊！已經 live 緊啊！而家我哋已經 live 緊，不過點解聽唔到啊？聽唔到佢講嘢嘅？已經 live 緊㗎啦！
奇怪喎，我都係，我喺 YouTube 嗰度聽唔到佢講嘢喎，我又唔想，
可能佢嗰度有問題啦。
Is kind of changing every day.
It does seem to, and I do think it's a good point. I mean, certainly that empathy is what Joe Biden has been selling to the American people. Judy Woodruff.
係喎，個 live 都冇聲喎。
係啊，咁係啦，咁係佢嗰邊個問題啊。
我睇個 live 都冇聲。
但係我哋已經 live 緊㗎啦，已經。我哋兩邊啊，歡迎咁多觀眾，歡迎咁多位觀眾啊！
喂，有啦，有聲。依家都係啱啱開始嘅啫噃。
係啦，而家就啱啱準備開始。
哦，所以點解頭先冇聲？依家有聲啊！依家聽到有手掌聲啊！
咁啊，我哋咧就歡迎啲益友先，因為咧就而家個熒光幕咧就淨係得嗰個，有晒音樂啦。咁咧，而家咁
今次辯論都唔知有啲乜嘢講啊！其實你希望係佢會問啲乜嘢嘅問題啊嗱？即係如果俾你，我
真係等陣先啊，等我我就陽光啊，
係
你就而家個熒光幕個畫面已經出咗你出嚟啦，喺我哋美港天下同美港天下和你 live 就同大家觀眾 say 個 hello。Hello， 大家好。
大家好啊！
咁我哋咧
佢又未開始，我哋又未開始啦。不過
我哋可以講下嘅，大家咧大家睇下，大家會有啲乜嘢？有乜嘢叫做咩啊？有咩問題啊？
喂，亨特喺邊度啊？唔知佢點答咧嚇？
亨特喺邊度又唔知佢點答啦。係咯，
佢點答啊，大佬？
我哋用電腦睇下好似慢少少，而家仲未有聲啦。好似我都有 post 俾你嘅喎。
咁就得啦，咁樣就唔使阻住。
而家我都要同步幾樣一齊。
其實咧可以慢慢傾下偈先嘅，就唔使話咁心急嘅，因為佢都未開始咧。
係啊，佢都未開始，大家可以傾下偈啊！大家講下，好歡迎啊！阿 Bernard 喺度啦，阿寶賢又喺度啦，咁阿 Bernard 又係三藩市嘅，好開心啊，係嘛？我哋大家喺度
睇有啲乜嘢嘅問題咧，希望大家有興趣嘅咁嘅時候咪可以傾下咯。例如好似話今日Joe Biden 佢都已經係好串喎。Joe Biden 話我已經 show 咗我嗰個嘅報稅表出嚟咯喎，你夠薑你就 show 你嗰個出嚟啦，係嘛？即係咁樣喎。
即係佢而家係用呢個方式啊。
係啊，就係玩呢啲咁嘅嘢啊。
去玩呢招。
Good evening from the Health Education
Campus,
Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News. And I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates.
Good evening.
陽光，你嗰邊可能要插耳機啊，太多把聲啦。
I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome
哇，咁我唔知佢講乜嘅喎，如果係咁。
你可唔可以插耳筒咧？
President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The Commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments.
哇，咁我睇唔到喎。
With 2-minute answers from each
你瞄一瞄，跟住睇下有冇得插掣啊？
then open
插耳機啊
discussion for the rest.
因為觀眾咧，我哋呢邊啲觀眾咧係聽到好多把聲啊。
For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the two candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
睇到，
睇到嘛 ，good。
好啊，而家兩位。
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
喂，聽唔聽到我講嘢㗎？
聽到。
You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president
咩叫 caption call 呢個問要唔要 caption
an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight: why are you right in the argument you make, and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first. 2 minutes.
咁我呢度攞呢個手機嚟睇啦。
We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this. Looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Jim. The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he has been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court, and the justice, and I'm not opposed to the justice. She seems like a very fine person, but she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing is on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be held pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure.
其實喺節目嗰度咧，嗰啲聽眾聽唔聽到佢哋所講嘅嘢㗎嚇？
聽到，
聽到㗎，
係聽到嘅。
哦 ，OK。因為我而家耳仔淨係聽到佢哋講緊，依家就係嗰個係 Supreme Court 嚇，跟住又話 Supreme。
Then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
佢而家講緊就係要想叫等咯。
As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So
good.
we have a president elected to the next during that period of time, we have an opening.
講得啱啊！佢話我係4年嘅總統啊嘛，唔係3年半嘅總統啊嘛，佢梗係有權可以委任㗎啦。
The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care, that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any, and one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won, were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what
that
your
is-
party has said.
that is simply
Your party
a lie.
佢完全唔理阿 Donald Trump 講嘢嘅喎，因為佢耳仔淨係聽到嗰個提水講乜嘢喎。Donald Trump 講嘢佢完全唔理
I
喎。
am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act? And
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't be
the deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which
no,
was heavily
Mr. President,
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr.
You're
President,
talking about 2 million people.
You're not gonna be able
President,
to
as
shut
a
him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already
You don't know it's
begun.
on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it
you
on the
said
ballot? It's not
you-
on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And you
just be
don't
quiet
know
for a
her
minute?
view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
view.
Well, all right, let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So, on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Fine. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin.
health
I give you
care.
an example. Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people. The cost. I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water. You want to know the truth? So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact,
pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let
but
me
this
ask
is
you about.
big.
You'll
This
be
is
happy,
big stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
will. If I can
sorry.
ask you the question, it will
Not
end.
what your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option, number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie Sanders, who's
I
far
did-
left, on the manifesto,
when
we
you-
call it.
when
And that
manifest-
gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are
I'm
you
not
saying you
going to
didn't
listen to
agree?
him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm
Not by
here
much.
standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left
Well,
2
I
days
tell
early.
you,
You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do
Super
is hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure, because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree,
want to
and
make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy,
Go,
the wrong
go,
night
Joe,
at the
go.
wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Now
let
you're
him-
disavowing it.
There
Go ahead.
is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
that's absolutely agreed
folks, do you have
to,
any
and under that
idea
plan,
what
you
this
have
clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Medicare
Do you
for
have
President.
any do?
Socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President.
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care. Because because he, in fact, already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give you
number
better
three.
health care at a much lower price because
he
Obamacare
doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has
Obamacare,
a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably doesn't.
Gentlemen, you
Obamacare
realize
is no
if you're
good,
both
Joe.
speaking at the
It's no
same
good,
time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president's go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, that they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
and
known
I just
for.
had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
Okay.
Premiums are too high, and it doesn't work. So we do want to get rid of it. Chris, we want to get rid of it.
I understand it, sir, but I have to give you roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right,
He's
I have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you going to pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question is
Supreme Court justice, radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
喂，Dennis 啊，聽唔聽到啊，Dennis？
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
right,
Gentlemen,
聽到聽到，
this is
係
so
聽到樣。
He's going to pack the court.
we have
Okay.
ended,
Not going to give a list.
we have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second
You can get-
segment.
That was really a productive
聽到
segment, wasn't it?
嗱，呢度佢話啊嘛，你冇一個 plan 啊嘛，但係你知唔知道啊 ？Donald Trump 其實佢已經係將呢個嘅糖尿病病人啦，同埋嗰個胰島素嗰個嘅藥價減咗50%，所以 Joe Biden 呢度講係講錯咗，同埋我哋嘅 Donald Trump 咧，佢將呢個胰島素同嗰啲藥廠講價係壓低佢個價嘅時候咧，係冇一個傳媒咧去同佢講嘅。
After we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even
冇一個傳媒講嘅，嗱呢個其實係佢做咗出嚟，你今次要講出嚟嘅時候咧，就已經係
normal.
俾晒全美國嘅人睇到佢係做到嘢。
What you have said and done so far, and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and
47年都冇做過嘢佢話你47年冇做過嘢，依家 expect 嚇你呢4年會做到嘢。
You are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a.
講緊武漢肺炎啦，依家又變咗個 subject 啦，主題。
Tape is acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out back in March exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you...
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country. Wait a minute.
It says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators.
佢全部都係要講錢，佢解決方法就係要錢。
We're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no economic recession.
Sir, you made a
there was no recession.
You made a point. Let him answer.
And there was no one. We didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far more people. Far more people.
And,
you would have been.
And by the way, his own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine.
但佢其實亦都講得啱嘅，因為阿侵咧佢話啊嘛，我已經係一早喺1月嘅時候已經係停止喺中國入嚟嗰啲嘅人啦，嗰啲嘅飛機入嚟嗰啲嘅人啦， Dr. Fauci 話：你呢一個嘅行動係可以保咗好多美國人嘅命嘅。嗱，呢一個咧又係傳媒完全冇講過㗎。嗱，因為嗰個咧係 Fauci 咧係俾人哋問話嘅時候咧係講嘅。佢話阿 Trump 1月31號佢嗰個嘅 China Bank 有冇救到美國嘅人嘅命啊？係咪救好多美國人？佢話係嘅，但係傳媒咧就淨係講話咁。示威咧，示威應唔應該要禁止啊？跟住咧，傳媒就話有冇搞錯啊？啊，依家要個 Dr. Fauci 喺度表態啊咁樣。但係其實咧問呢一個之前咧，佢嗰個就係問佢嗰個 China Bank 有冇救到美國人咧？有，救咗好多美國人。嗱，呢個又係傳媒從來冇提到嘅。所以 Donald Trump 佢係講真嘢嘅呢一度。
Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call them.
The head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slawi?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available.
Just like he said, it's a possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be after that.
Generally available.
Well, we're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day.
唔使話咩，淨係 Donald Trump 咧，佢話啊嘛，佢要 inspector 咧要 check 佢嗰個耳聾機啊嘛，佢唔準 check 啊。佢唔準 check 嗰個耳聾機啊。
Maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the same man.
That was said sarcastically. You know that. That was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal: this man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year, but the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up
You'll have
on
the
that.
Vaccine sooner
I want to pick up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
everybody
you can't,
knows.
Senator Harris is saying you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust.
She said the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by the way,
I spoke to the scientists that are in charge.
By the way,
they will have the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market. One of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died. And a lot more going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
February 嗰時仲未啊。
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
if you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See, we're going to get to the economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay. When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to provide them plastic.
Tell that to Nancy Pelosi.
Well, he's just shushing.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan.
你知唔知嗰度串佢乜嘢啊？佢話你好聰明啊！你 Delaware 話嗰度啊，你連奧巴馬個名你都唔記得咗啊！佢要 forget the name of your college 啊！其實係邊個？佢就係you know that man。佢講話 my boss 咁樣，佢唔記得奧巴馬，佢於是乎佢講my boss 咁樣啊，呢度串翻佢，串佢冇記性啊呢度。
哇！你嗰度 delay 得好犀利喎。
We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that
我都係睇緊 YouTube 㗎咋。
And diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't.
你睇電視啊，電視啊快好多喎電視。
We've learned a lot.
YouTube，
but he wants to shut it down. More people.
我都係 Fox Business 啊。
By continuing, if you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election.
Open shut down.
Because it's a political. But those states are not doing well that are shut down right now.
President Trump, you have begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
no, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are okay.
of
You have
masks?
to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to. But I wear masks when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice President Biden. Go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
嗱，你見唔見到佢啦？一話你要 shut down 啊 ，after the election 嘅時候咧 ，Warren 就即刻截住佢啦。
Dr. Fauci said the opposite.
He did not say the opposite.
We got a little bit more than a minute left in this
masks
segment.
Are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks are good. I'm okay with masks.
I want to ask you both about one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with...
Because nobody will show up.
People with...
Well, it's true. Nobody shows up to his rally.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies, why you not? You go first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
but are you not worried about
it spreading
disease?
As a president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you not worried about the disease
We have a lot of
issues,
people.
Sir?
Well, so far, we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours' notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay. By the way, did you...
嗱，呢個又啱喎。CDC 根本就係信唔過嘅喎，一時又話戴口罩有用，一時話戴口罩冇用喎。呢個 CDC 亦都係前後矛盾喎，佢亦都講得啱喎。
係啊。
I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
其實咧，阿 Trump 咧，佢係好聰明，因為呢個 Dr. Fauci 咧，呢個係佢哋嘅人嚟嘅 ，OK？ 你見到阿 Trump 佢係唔戴口罩噶嘛？佢唔戴口罩，點解唔戴口罩啊 ？Fauci 佢話唔使戴口罩，咁我咪唔戴咯。好啦，你又見到佢戴口罩啊？點解你又戴口罩？我見到 Fauci 戴，叫我戴，咁我咪戴咯。總之咧，遲早有啲咩事咧，阿 Trump 咧就推阿 Fauci 去死嘅 ，OK？ 因為 嗱，花池唔係佢嘅人嚟㗎，花池明知道阿昌明知呢個係敵人嚟嘅 ，OK， 但係佢照用佢嘅。
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to
繼續用佢，因為要拱佢死嘅呢個係呢個敵人係要拱佢死嘅 ，OK。所以佢唔帶，因為佢聽花池講。點解佢帶？我聽花池講，有啲乜嘢就拱佢死嘅 ，OK。
因為
最好嘅方法就係 keep your enemy next
to you. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history.
但係咧，阿侵咧，佢問個花池係唔係戴口罩就會可以防止呢個病？阿花池唔夠膽答啊！因為佢唔夠膽答就戴口罩可以防止呢個肺炎啊！佢唔夠膽答，因為戴口罩都會惹到肺炎啊嘛。
But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down the... He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening at some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us.
They're
hurting people. People know what to do.
They can social distance, they can wash their hands, they can do whatever they want. But
they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing?
我依家先講到話11月9號會再開喎，係咪好慢啊？
係啊，你好慢啊。
Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools, why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
唔係淨係紐約係 ghost town 啊，度度都係 ghost town， 所有民主黨嘅地方都係 ghost town。
係啊。
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools. No, people want their schools open.
Yeah,
they don't want to be shut
people
down.
want the school
they don't want their
open.
state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad
want the
what's happening in
restaurant
New York.
open.
It's
We want
almost
the
like a
school
ghost
open.
town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives.
People
They'll
want
be
to be
careful,
safe.
but they want their schools open.
People want
I'm
to
the
be
one that
safe.
brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
All right,
people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know
We're going
how
to
I
get
found
back.
out?
嗱呢個又講佢 income tax 啊，750蚊啊。
Economic plans going forward in a moment, but first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes.
3800萬稅啊，唔係750蚊啊。
Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers. I paid $38 million one year. I paid $27 million
Show us your tax
one year.
returns.
I went, you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under-leveraged because the assets are extremely good. And we have a I built a great
I'm asking
company.
you a specific question, which
but
is...
let me tell you.
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. No, Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars,
So
yes.
not 750?
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now the man got fired.
又話你俾啲稅啊少過老師嚇，一個又話我俾幾百萬稅，咁口同鼻拗啦。
Put him in a position.
佢仲話咩？佢俾個2000幾百萬添啊！
On the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who in fact need the help. People out there need help.
Bullshit.
Why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because
you are president screwing things up. You're the worst. 好明顯，奧巴馬嗰陣時個市冧嗰陣時，奧巴馬幫邊個？奧巴馬幫 Fed。
In 47 months,
Freddie
I've
and Mac.
done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward, because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth, because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make the federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed.
The economy is busted. Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
But let me.
But in
Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery since economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't booming.
He built it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when fact, when there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in a hole.
Excuse me, Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you were number two.
No.
2010.
Chris. They said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing. Part of my standard fare.
I'm the guy that brought back the automobile industry.
All right, let him
we brought back. I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had. Many car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having.
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done.
而家傳埋佢個仔啦！依家
係
乜咁快啊？你嗰個轉得好快喎！你嗰邊，我呢邊仲係講緊個 trade deal.
China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit with Mexico.
China ate your lunch, down 18%. China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes.
而家 check 緊啊，就話 none of that is true。依家 FBI check 緊你個仔啦，大佬。
The mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son 3.
其實呢一個係個大新聞嚟嘅，啊亨太佢個仔嗰壇嘢。但係啲傳媒咧就唔提，淨係提咧佢話交750蚊係轉移視線，呢就傳媒所做嘅嘢啦，幾契弟咯 ，OK？ 係啊，依家 bring out 出嚟你個仔啊350萬啊 ，OK？ 依家好你解釋啦，依家。
跟住啲人咧又話：點解唔查阿 Trump 啲仔啊？咁佢哋咪查咯，佢哋去查咪得咯，嚇？點解佢哋唔查咧？梗係有原因㗎嘛，佢哋又唔查。跟住又話因為嗰啲人係阿 Trump 嘅人，戇鳩嘅。
Look, my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who?
And
the media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our allies, by the World Bank, by everyone. Discredited. Matter of fact, even the people who testified under oath
So let me ask you this.
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
People you got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd
honorably.
like to know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the people who testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a good job. With you,
go ahead. Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me.
Hey, let me just say, Joe.
No. I'm Mr. President.
$3.5 million, Joe.
That is simply
Why did he deserve $3.5 million from
Moscow? Here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's already...
My family lost a fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
即係唔肯講佢個仔啦，死都唔肯講佢個仔啦。
This is not about my family or his family. It's about your family, the American people.
佢啲 family 已經 making enough money 啊，走嚟做 public servant 啊。
What you need, you, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about.
嗱，Trump 佢一想講閱兵嘅時候，佢即刻 stop 啦，呢個。所以呢一個可能都係奸嘅呢個，呢個主持都係奸嘅。
Wallace 我都知道係奸㗎。
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
that is absolutely not true.
You're going to have
true,
gentlemen. I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to be. Why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
than he has.
That's all
right, but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less than,
plenty.
No, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from
嗰啲咪民主黨咯，嗰啲
require equity for everyone.
佢講嗰啲咪民主黨咯。
But we've never accomplished it.
3K 黨咪民主黨咯。
Away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
It is
now, second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So, President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with racism?
He did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago,
佢呢度亦都講出聯邦制嗰個嘅掣肘 ，OK。若果地方政府咧唔打電話唔 call 佢嘅時候咧，佢係冇辦法可以入去。佢話你一個電話，我半個鐘頭就可以搞掂，我拉晒嗰班人佢。你一個電話得啦，但係佢哋唔肯啊嘛。
Run by Democrats and in many cases radical left, and they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question.
好啦，佢哋搞出個大頭佛咧，跟住咧就賴聯邦啦。喂，大佬啊！聯邦係冇權派兵入去噶嘛，你一定要 call 嘅時候。求救嘅時候，我先可以派兵嘅話，你一個電話我半個鐘頭，我就可以拉晒嗰班人。但係呢班嘅民主黨唔制啊嘛，你要由得佢啊嘛，喺度作亂啊嘛，作惡啊嘛，喺度搶喺度燒啊嘛，喺度破壞啊嘛。
In law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to say what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy.
佢又講 peaceful protest 咩叫 peaceful 啊？
But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right,
what is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of the town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place, and you say peaceful protest? No, it's not, but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the issue of race. I promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody else. And he would know.
What is radical about racial sensitivity training?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's a racist.
You just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them.
So that's why
it's
you have
important
to touch
people
those
know.
kids.
They don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings.
So let
but
them
it
have
makes
good
a
feeling.
big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are...
仲有啊，佢從來都冇撫摸一個黑人嘅小朋友啊，證明佢就係最種族歧視嘅啫嘛。啊，而家摸親都係白㗎嚇，唐人嘅摸黑嘅你又唔摸嘅嚇，證明你種族歧視啦。咪咯，你話要俾嗰啲嘅咩 self-esteem 啊咩 sensibility 啊嘛，係嘛？咁黑嘅都要摸啦，如果係咁講。
There was hatred. You look at Ferguson. You look at. You go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
The reason is that the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
Violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You following
Are you in favor of law and order? Go
yes,
ahead.
You asked a question. Let him finish.
Law and order. Law and order.
Let him.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
有搞錯啊！呢個講大話。
He has.
All right. We're now. You're
乜嘢
？17%，佢話高單17-15%，佢哋做緊喺佢個 administration 嗰度，喺佢個 administration 度 crime 係高 up 嘅。不過因為點解係高單？
嗱，跟住咧，Donald Trump佢咧就話啊嘛，知唔知點解高 up 啊？咪因為你所有民主黨嘅城市喺度製造喺度暴動啊嘛，咪有啲 violent crime 咯，因為所有嘅民主黨嘅城市喺度製造暴亂啊嘛。
仲有一樣嘢就係佢將啲 crime 降低嗰個咩啊嘛，門檻啊嘛。
53 people were shot and 8 died. Shot. If you look
咪
at
咯，
New York,
喂，950蚊都冇 crime 咯，咁何來有 crime 啊？
係咯，咁係咪將嗰啲咪變咗係 lower the way they lower the crime？
喂，我想 lower the way，我話俾你聽啦，喂，我可以即刻冇晒醉酒駕車，即刻由0.8% 至到3%。全部升晒，3% 先係醉酒，2.9都唔係醉酒，咁咪冇醉酒咯，3% 地滾波啦嘛，啱唔啱啊？好簡單啫嘛。
左監咪做啲咁嘅嘢咯。
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. Yeah. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means...
let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support.
Look,
he has no law enforcement
that's not
support.
True.
Almost
that's
nothing.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have?
佢答唔到啊。
Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead. Think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
No, think
all
about
right.
it. Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported you.
Gentlemen, I think I'm going to take back the moderator's role, and I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is, as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it.
But you've never called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You had never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Really? Here's the thing.
I sent in the U.S. Marshals to get the killer of the young man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and for 3 days,
President Trump,
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals. They took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that. And so here's the But here's the point. The point is that that's what he keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, and every single solitary time.
And to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
Wait, I have to answer his statement.
No, you have
his
repeatedly.
Statement.
You have repeatedly. No, you've been talking back and forth.
He made a statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
Sir.
I would love to end it.
You know, if you want to switch seats.
We would very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd send in the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared
to
specifically
do it?
Go ahead,
sir. I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right-wing militia.
Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing. This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
Not militia.
My
That's
God.
what his FBI his FBI director said.
Well, then you know what?
We're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're moving.
Antifa 根本就係民主黨嘅3K 黨，以前民主黨嘅打手就係3K 黨，依家民主黨嘅打手就係 Antifa。Antifa 咧，佢嗰個金主就係索羅斯。嗰陣時我亦都係擺咗一段嗰個嘅 video， 就係 Soros。Where my money? Soros, where's my money? 點解？嗰班 Antifa 係攞索羅斯嘅錢咧，就去做暴動嘅嘢，攞唔到錢咧，就成班 Antifa 走去咧索羅斯嘅屋企門口咧，即係問佢攞錢。嗱，咁係人都知道索羅斯就係民主黨嘅金主嚟㗎啦，所以點解所有傳媒就咪將呢個咁嘅video啊冚完又冚咯？依家佢仲話 Antifa 唔係一個組織，係一個 idea 喎，明明係一個恐怖組織嚟㗎啦。Joe Biden 你講乜啊？
仲要打壓言論自由啊！嗰班人。借住新聞自由嚟打壓言論自由
有咩新聞自由啊？佢哋直情係去嗰啲餐館嗰度破壞添啦，直情喺度搞亂嗰啲食客添啦，搞亂嗰啲嘢啊，砌爛晒嗰啲台凳啲嘢食啊，飲佢啲啤酒啊咁樣啦，抌晒佢啲嘢食啦。
經驗啦，我呢啲去影嘢都唔俾影啦，已經。
A fixing of the VA,
我第一身經驗
mess under him. 308,000.
如果 Antifa 係一個 idea， 唔係一個恐怖組織啊，三上都唔使走去 Antifa 嗰度救人啊嘛。
Our vets, we take care of our vets, but we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something. Some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges. 300. And hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused the recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word.
Can you add no, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes,
okay.
You may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking about Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Beau Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Beau. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you became vice president, he made a fortune.
有冇搞錯？賣身 like everybody in your home have job problem， 淨係你個仔先要有 job problem 喎。我個仔喺我屋企冇 job problem 喎，大佬。
Like a lot of people we know at home had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it. And I'm proud of him.
But why was he given tens of millions of dollars?
But he wasn't given tens of millions of dollars. That is totally, discredited.
We've already been
totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a judgment call here.
Gets $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow.
Let's talk about that. True. Gentlemen, that report is totally discredited. Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
got to have cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
嗱，其實你發唔發覺 Florence 嗰度係有個嘅問題啊？佢話你信唔信 the science of climate change？OK， 佢已經係講咗 climate change 係一個 science 嚟嘅。其實 climate change is not a science.
Pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the
climate change is natural phenomenon.
Yes, I think to an extent, yes, but
係一個自然現象嚟嘅，大佬 climate change.
Of our forests, every year I get the call. California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground. That's burning down because of a lack of management.
But, sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars and trucks?
Well, not really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by $3,500.
In the case of California, they've simply ignored.
No, but you would take a lot of cars off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me. Many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one.
Absolutely.
Number two,
台灣已經好好例子啊！
during our
喺台灣已經
administration
好
of
例
the
子。
Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability of us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
拜登講緊嗰啲全部都係左膠嗰啲幻想國嚟嘅。Green power is not green.
You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building. No, it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. You know, that's not true either, right? This is a $100 trillion.
Look,
that's more money than our country could make in 100 years.
跟住佢話佢係咁，佢話佢係 support science， 班左膠就話，佢哋 support 緊 science。
你知唔知一部 Tesla 嘅電池有幾重啊？一部 Tesla 如果要行300幾米，電池係半噸，半噸嘅電池。嗰度所佔用嘅稀土係需要250噸嘅發掘，你先至揾到嗰半噸嘅稀土嚟做個電池，
知唔係？
係250噸。
係啊，咁稀土喺邊度嚟啊？係咪？
稀土咧就係要就係好多衰在呢度，美國就冇稀土，就一定要喺嗰啲亞洲啊、中國啊、印度啊、中東啊嗰頭啊，甚至非洲嗰度我哋掘。
澳洲嗰度好多稀土，澳洲嗰度咧。
I never said that.
That's he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the
deal. 所以咧，我哋做呢行嘅好慘嘅。我哋做呢行大勢已去先可以做到呢行啊。
By making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. That didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is
not
my plan.
That's
the Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
You want to rebuild every new.
Stop 乜嘢啊 ？Stop！ 佢根本就係喺度侮辱緊美軍 ，stupid bastard！ 有埋錄像，有埋影像，但係傳媒冇人咧喺度插個 Joe Biden，OK？ 而只要話係美軍係 loser 呢個，冇人證、冇物證、冇錄音，係我一個係不記名嘅來源啊！頂你個肺啊！真係。嗱，所以嗰個 Warren 就喺度猛咁截停啊 Donald Trump 就咁解啦。OK。
And about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental changes will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. You're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you support the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
You support?
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
Oh, you don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
I support
the radical left.
I support the Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment, election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks? Because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk.
佢話啊嘛 ，FBI 啊，佢話已經冇任何證據顯示咧呢個郵寄嘅投票咧係有呢個嘅欺詐成分啊嘛。但係26台咧就好串嘅。跟住第一個新聞咧就係咧喺揾到嗰啲嘅郵寄投票咧俾人抌晒，裏邊全部都係投票 Donald Trump 嘅。跟住下一個咧就係話 FBI 咧冇任何證據可以顯示郵寄投票係有欺詐成分。屌你諗乜兩個新聞就一前一後26台咧，你都算抵死咯！你咁樣嘅做法根本就係兜巴冚落個 FBI 嗰度。屌你乜根本前邊就已經係抌晒啲 Donald Trump 嗰啲票，跟住話冇證據顯示，你老味真係你話26台係咪串咧？佢即係屌你咧，唔使屌嘅，佢屌你擺個新聞一前一後。已經屌撚咗嚟嘅 ，OK？
If I lose, they'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen.
No,
it won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand. You have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? Or you get 4 more years of these lies.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won. From the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady, they were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place.
咪咯，仲話冇，佢話攤佢都見到我嗰啲嘅選票啊，有寫我個名嘅，啲新聞全部走晒出嚟㗎啦。你仲話 FBI 話冇任何證據顯示郵寄投票係有欺詐成分嘅，黐線嘅你。
People are really happy with the job we've done, but you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months. Because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th.
最驚咧就係真真正正真係一人一票咁樣去投。亂咁嚟咧就最好啊，益晒民主黨啊！
加州嗱，如果話你聽咧，加州大約咧係有500萬票咧係 illegal 假嘅，包括大約係有100萬票咧係死人嘅票嚟嘅。係已經係不合格，跟住其餘嗰啲咧就係冇公民身份啦，搬咗去第二個州啦、double 啦，同埋嗰啲係冇呢一個人喺度嘅，佢有大約係500萬票啦，而呢500萬票當中咧，幾乎全部都係對民主黨嘅，所以咧 Donald Trump 一定要做一個嘅選舉改革，若果唔係咧，我哋加州點樣投票都唔夠佢哋嗰啲假票嚟，
假票嚟嘅，
唔使話咩，淨係死人票都過100萬票，你諗下。
What's happening is incredible. I just heard, I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them. We don't like them. We don't like them.
But
they throw them out left
there
and
are
right.
millions of ballots going out
what
right
you
now.
do
What
is
you
go
do?
And vote. You do a solicited ballot,
and
that's
I'm
okay,
not,
or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people
you go and vote. You go and vote like they used to in the old
No evidence 有晒新聞啊，低鳩能啊！呢個真係 no evidence， 你唔睇新聞㗎。
They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well.
There is no
this is not going to end well.
5 states have had mail-in ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because
You're wrong. You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on this, Vice President Biden. Because
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes
in fact,
counting the real vote.
Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years of mail-in voting has not been fraud. Historically, it has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court, with a Justice Barrett, will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this, because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots,
I have a final
Senate
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already there's been
so now, gentlemen, final question is, in 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks,
could be months,
until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest, and will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what, from a common sense,
does that mean you're going to tell your people to take to the street?
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it, number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
you think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare?
有陣時唔需要打開嘅嗰啲嘅 ballot 係唔需要打開嘅，已經知道啦。例如話嗰啲嘅軍人嘅票咧，一定係俾啲保守派，所以所有軍人嘅票喺海外寄過嚟嗰啲咧，佢全部抌晒，都已經得噶啦。佢唔需要話我要 check 過晒喎，唔需要話要 check 過晒嘅。同埋咧就有好多嘅地區咧喺歷史上邊嗰個區全部係投共和黨嘅，佢抌晒已經得噶啦，係嗰個區已經得噶啦，根本唔需要話我要到係選舉日先至可以全部開嘅，未到選舉日之前咧都唔準開嘅，你使乜話唔準開啫？呢咁啊歷史上邊有晒記錄噶啦嘛呢啲嘢，即係等於 Donald Trump 同佢講話，你話你支持嗰啲嘅執法嘅機構，你講一間執法嘅機構支持你講，我大把時間講好多時間講，你一個都講唔到。
In fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome, and I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this. Next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th at the University of Utah. In Salt Lake City, the 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night.
多鬼餘嘅其實話俾你聽啊，就算 Donald Trump 佢點樣講話你淨係睇下 Hunter，OK？ 你講你個仔 Hunter， 我唔知你第幾個仔喎 ，OK？ 我淨係知道 Hunter， 佢根本咧不學無術，學業又唔得，跟住咧就係俾人踢出呢個軍隊，踢出軍校，揾嘢又揾唔到嘢做 直至到你做咗副總統嘅時候，佢先至有嘢做啊！跟住又有俄羅斯又攞350萬，喺中國又攞幾百萬啊！喺呢個烏克蘭嗰度又攞幾百萬，佢憑乜嘢攞啲錢啊？再講佢憑乜嘢嘅本事去攞啲錢？呢啲錢係攞嚟做乜鬼嘢嘅咧嚇？可唔可以講咧嚇？好似呢啲咁嘅嘢，嗱，每次一講出呢啲嘢咧，嗰個主持人咧就會暫亂歌病嘅啦嚇，跟住就會重，因為點解？佢唔想將呢啲咁嘅信息咧，啲傳媒完全冇提嘅信息咧，喺度爆晒出嚟。係啦，嚇，所以好多嘢嚇，好多就係咯，例如佢話啦。FBI 佢都話啦，冇任何證據可以顯示出郵寄投票有任何嘅欺詐成分㗎啦。但係佢已經係講過好多次，啲新聞已經爆晒出嚟啦嚇。佢都唔講，佢都講我冇 evidence。啲退伍軍人嗰啲票全部寫我個名嘅，就全部抌鬼晒佢嚇。跟住喺嗰個咩 Greenville 嗰啲河嗰度坑渠嗰度咧，嗰啲又抌晒我嗰啲票去，係咪？啲新聞全部走晒出嚟㗎啦。乜嘢 FBI？話唔會有呢個投票欺詐，挑你咩根本 FBI 都已經係講大話，根本就已經講大話。而且亦都係有好多就係嗰啲嘅投票啊，俾人抌晒落垃圾桶啊，係用嗰啲夜視嗰啲嘅 camera 影，我都擺晒上網啊。不如你話嗰啲係 CG 嚟嘅啦 ，OK？ 係啊，咁啊，等我試下攞睇下。開唔到你個樣出嚟嘅，點解？係啊，咁啊而家或者係咁樣再講一講賽後，我哋再一次而家，因為頭先咧其實都有少少亂啊，嗰個 delay 咧，我哋嗰個同步咧，即係同步唔到啊！你睇嗰陣時，我又未睇到，或者我睇嘅時候你未睇到。係啊，所以咧到觀眾去到觀眾嗰陣時咧，有可能又咦？睇下有冇斷？冇斷到啫，仲喺度啫嚇，係咯。跟住咧就變咗有可能嗰個都幾亂咯嚇。不過但係我哋咧就會不停咁會去嘗試好多新嘢噶嘛。咁同埋好似今日咁咧，已經係一個新嘅嘗試啦。因為點解咧？我哋係 YouTube 同 Facebook 同步上啊。咁中間係有一段時間咧，有一節咧好奇怪，好似有啲阻滯啦。不過即係之後都好順。但係問題就係我哋咧係要睇下點樣咧。等我哋第日咪後咧，我哋再研究點樣可以令到我同你遠距離都好嗰個 delay 係點樣？睇下點樣可以。其實我同你咧就冇 delay 嘅，因為我同你本身咧都係嗰個係同步嘅 communication 嚟嘅。但係個 delay 咧就係你所睇到嘅影像同埋我所睇到嘅影像，因為 internet 咧梗有 delay 嘅，係所以好多時咧你一講句説話死啦！你講緊乜嘢啊？我未到喎咁樣，跟住到啦，開始到啦！我依家明你講乜嘢啦咁啊！係啊，咁咁其實仲有咧，有幾個位咧，其實我發覺我覺得我頭先就唔記得開 timer， 我覺得好似係 Biden 講嘢係多過 Trump 喎。我都唔知啊，但係佢哋嗌交都嗌得好亂啊，好多係 overlap 啊，好多 overlap 喎，係咪？嗰啲時間佢哋兩個 overlap 啊！哇！我好似睇緊韓戰啊，以為郭富城同埋邊個梁家輝喺度嗌交咁樣樣啊，我哋睇緊韓戰啊，佢老味。不過其實咁喎，真正嘅嗌交係真係咁樣 overlap 嘅喎。如果話拍電影咧，你一句我一句，冇錯，你係就到啲觀眾知道佢嗌乜嘢。但係其實真正嗌交咧，就係咁樣 overlap 嘅。你頭先可以睇到啦。所以韓戰咧，佢嗰度拍嗰個嗌交嗰場戲咧係拍得好好嘅喎，我覺得嗰度。正式debate 都係咁係咪？正式你睇下啦 ，debate 都係咁樣嘅啦。係啊，所以其實都我會覺得係幾精彩嘅。只係我同你嗰個點樣可以個 sequence 好啲啫。咁阿 Trump 咧
有冇甩漏咧？你覺得？我覺得好似有啲甩漏都。
佢唔係都唔算話叫甩漏嘅，叫做係捉到鹿係未脱到角咯。即係好多嘢未脱到角咯。同埋咧就係佢要脱角嘅時候咧，跟住個主持就出嚟暫亂歌病啦。即係有優勢嘅時候，佢就會出嚟暫亂歌病啦嚇。不過呢啲咧，我翻去再睇翻佢，再整理一下嘅時候咧，我就可以插佢噶咯呢啲。因為佢喺環保嗰度咧，即係佢阿拜登幾次都係用武漢肺炎啊。其實唔好講環保先啦，講翻武漢肺炎，拜登幾次都用武漢肺炎啊。但係 Trump 咧竟然咧就冇去用 China virus， 佢用過一次，講係 China from China 係咁多，但係咧冇講到喺 China virus 之前佢嗰個 record， 有可能就冇機會講啊。喺 China virus 之後係 China virus 導致，咁佢只有一段時間就講到佢嗰陣時封大陸機過嚟，跟住之後仲俾拜登笑佢受風力xenophobia 啊嘛，笑佢啊嘛，跟住又Nancy Pelosi 又去 Chinatown 嗰啲咁嘅 K-卡嘢咯。咁仲有，我覺得拜登嘅講嘅嘢係多，係啊，我都覺得好似拜登係啊，我都覺得拜登好似講得多過 Trump 要 into， 但係到 Trump 要講嗰陣時咧，好多時就差唔多到嗰個主題戲肉啦，戲肉嗰陣時就俾 cut 啦，差唔多到又 cut 啦，因為你之前你每個樣嘢你講嘅之前咧就有個前提啊嘛，要講咗個前提，跟住後尾啲人先知你講乜噶嘛，咁佢就到佢真係要講嗰個位嗰陣時咧，就已經被 cut 啦。但係其實阿侵啊，佢已經係好堅持噶啦。佢咧就話：你哋呢班人咧冇人證冇物證，跟住話有個不明嘅來源，有個唔可以話俾你聽嘅秘密來源咧，就話你聽。我咧就話嗰啲嘅美國軍人係 loser 喎。喂，你條契弟啊，有晒 video 有晒錄音啊，就話嗰啲嘅美國軍人啊，拍手啦！你班契弟 stupid bastard 咁樣。喂，已經有晒喎，但係有邊個傳媒可以屌鳩啊拜登？冇一個傳媒屌鳩佢喎。咁你話傳媒咧，咪就係叫 bias， 咪就咁解咯。啱唔啱先？嗰段嘢，我諗你都有睇過啦。喂，拍手啦！你班 stupid bastard 咁啊 ！stupid bastard 啊嘛，係啊，佢都嗱。不過其實咧，我話你聽 ，to be fair 咧，拜登咧佢講呢個咧，亦都唔算係一個侮辱性，因為咧喺軍隊嘅文化嗰度咧，佢軍隊嘅文化冇講呢個話侮辱性嘅。軍隊嘅文化同我哋出邊咧嗰啲嘅普通人嗰種文化係完全唔同嘅。軍隊之間，喂，甚至乎係譬如佢講話黑人嗰啲力加嗰啲咧，佢都係咁樣照講嘅。但係唔代表佢係唔當你係兄弟。當一上戰場上邊嘅時候咧，佢就幫你擋子彈都得嘅。呢啲係軍隊嘅文化。OK， 你係黑人，真係嚟到嘅時候，我幫你擋子彈。係啊，呢啲佢嗰啲係叫兄弟情嚟嘅。OK， 就算喺軍隊裏邊，你嗌 super bastard 咧，佢嗰一種係一種兄弟情嚟嘅。有可能又唔同嗰個係唔同啊，係可能飲醉酒啊、爭女啊、偷女啊、打下交啊。OK， 呢一種係兄弟情嚟嘅。OK， 但係一出到去打仗嘅時候，係不分種族、不分顏色，擋子彈乜嘢都得㗎。所以仲有咧。佢哋唔明嗱，好多人唔明咧，話Joe Biden 咧話，拍手啦，要 stupid bastard 咧，佢當呢一個咧係好似侮辱軍人。其實咧 ，Joe Biden 佢都唔會咁戇居，話拍手啦，要 stupid bastard 咁樣啦。其實呢一個咧係軍人當中嘅兄弟情。嗱，我好少係幫民主黨講説話嘅啫。嗱，今次我亦都就算係做出嚟嘅時候，我都幫佢講説話。因為好多人唔明白軍隊之中嘅兄弟情係乜嘢嘅意思，我幫佢講説話㗎，啱唔啱先？所以根本啲人成日話：喂，你唔好幫鳩晒啊 Donald Trump 啦嚇，喺度專門鬧，我唔係專門鬧佢嘅啫，係咁就係咁啊嘛。你諗下， 我身為一個嘅總統候選人，我去到軍隊嗰度，會唔會話拍手啦？要 stupid bastard，你會唔會咁樣去侮辱你嗰啲嘅聽眾啊？你係唔會噶嘛？但係你唔明白軍隊之中嘅兄弟情呢樣嘢係可以接受，係 acceptable 噶嘛？係啊，你好多人係唔明啊嘛。你唔做當過兵嘅，你唔會明。即係我周時都話啦，你未做過廚嘅，唔知廚房熱啊！你未當過警察嘅時候，你唔知道截車嘅係咁危險。係啊，佢Joe Biden 佢亦都係有講過嗰個叫community policing 啊，我唔知佢嗰個 community policing 咧係咪講話係即係好似話代替警察咁樣嘅做法係 community 嘅，因為佢唔係 police 喎，佢係 policing 喎，去行 beat 咁樣嚟 policing 喎，咁樣 community 係咪一個唔係警察但係做緊 policing 嘅嘢咧？喺個 community 咧？呢度我要 check 下佢究竟想講乜嘢。如果佢係咁咧，呢個就係都好大鑊，因為你唔可以話一個普通人冇所有嘅武器咧，而走去 policing 嘅，或者 community 或者截停部車，因為你會睇過，就算喺 YouTube 嗰度你睇過，好多時一截車嘅時候就俾人打，同埋俾嗰啲司機開槍射啊、打啊、殺啊，其實截車係一個好危險嘅任務嚟嘅，截車係啊，好危險嘅任務嚟嘅，唔可以話係俾嗰啲嘅普通冇武器嘅人去截車嘅，絕對係唔可以嘅。係啊，
佢個 defending 嗰度又係啦 ，defending 嗰度又有啲defending 嗰度其實都有位入嘅，講 defending 嗰度，同埋除咗講 defending 咧，佢有個位咧，佢講緊話拜登話佢自己點樣去為啲下一代嗰陣時咧，為啲叫啲人你啲細路嗰啲咁嘅嘢咧，Trump 嗰度又冇上啦，咁啊 Trump 咪應該，不過 Trump 可能佢又冇呢啲咁嘅，我哋呢啲咁邋遢嘅思想啦，即刻話佢咧，話佢摸細路走去摸細路go touch the kid。Are you talking about touching the kid? Are you talking about 佢應該講嗰樣嘢如果佢講到嗰樣嘢咧，就話嘛如果講到嗰樣嘢咧，就可能會即係佢真係插嘴啫嘛，可以唔使一定係話叫做 debate 啊。
其實咧，Donald Trump 佢有一樣嘢咧就冇講到嘅，就係話係黑人嗰度種族嗰個問題嗰度咧，喺種族嗰個問題咧就話你點樣去同嗰啲不同種族嘅人話你要揀我唔揀我嘅對手咧？根本其實佢用翻呢個共和黨嗰個黨大會嗰度已經係講晒嘅時候，喂，已經係夠晒啦。喂，我淨係嗰個，因為黑人嗰個犯罪率太高，我嗰個 prison reform， 我嗰個叫係監獄改革法，可以等佢哋出嚟嘅時候有一個重獲新生。嗰陣時我亦都係訪問咗好多左青龍右白虎紋晒公仔但係着晒西裝出嚟同我接受訪問嗰一班人。佢哋出到嚟嘅感受係點樣？係點樣受益於我嗰個 prison reform？ 另外第二，我俾錢嗰啲嘅 black college 嗰度同埋令到嗰啲嘅黑人嘅學生係嗰個嘅畢業率去提高，出嚟更加容易揾到工作嗰度，佢亦都冇，佢要提呢度。嗱，佢喺個共和黨嘅黨大會嗰度咧，係完全係有講到嘅。另外第三，
夠時間啦，
就係嗰個嘅 school choice。係唔夠時間，當然。黨大會佢俾幾日你啊嘛，4日俾你講，有排講啊嘛。但係佢2分鐘講唔到。係，佢2分鐘講唔到，佢可能咧要將嗰啲，即係我諗佢要將好多嘢咧縮短啊，因為佢嗰啲嘢要講到出嚟咧，個 message 要帶到出嚟嗰陣時咧，好多時都出嚟係已經超過時間。我依家講都超過2分鐘啦，你話啦。係啦，就咁講都超過2分鐘。嗱，淨係個 school choice 嗰度咧，係俾到父母，尤其是啲黑人嘅父母，唔需要將佢哋嘅細路擺喺個失敗嘅公立學校 school choice 嘅時候，我有選擇，咁我揀私立學校得唔得？得，當然係可以啦。你要揀呢個私立學校嘅時候，我就俾學校代用券俾你，就算窮嘅人，你都可以有資格，可以享受到我哋有錢人俾啲細路仔去私立學校嗰種嘅好處。 呢個已經做到。
business 咧，仲有 business 喺黑人區嗰個 business 有
就係嗰個 opportunity zone 啦，即係好似特區 opportunity zone 嗰度咧就係啦，我就係將你喺呢個嘅係去最 ghetto 嘅地方啊，最冇人夠膽去嘅地方，我就提供啲稅務優惠啊，甚至乎係俾埋一個免息嘅借貸，你嗰度做生意，請翻嗰度嗰啲嘅人去幫你手。當你都話啦，嗰班嘅黑人，咦，我有工做嘅時候，佢邊得閒啊，走去破壞、偷嘢、搶嘢、燒嘢啊，係咪先？佢亦都
講大話，仲有咧，佢講個15% 嗰個犯罪率咧嚇，佢講緊15%，佢哋做嗰陣時咧就跌低咗，將個犯罪率降咗17% 嗰度咧，其實又係因為佢哋將犯罪就好似你講話。
唔當犯罪
咩？嚇，醉酒駕駛本來係
0.08%嘅咁。
明白，跟住你升到去，你係2，你先係醉酒駕駛，咁咪搞掂咯。
升到係2%先係醉酒駕駛咁咪得咯。
2%
咁個個都唔合資格醉酒駕駛啦，即係等於話950蚊都唔算犯罪咯。咁何來有罪咧？
係啦，咁啊，所以嗰個犯罪率降低嘅原因，啲人又要去用呢個角度去睇咯，就唔係話咧。
好啦，跟住啦，佢就話咁你咧喺你嘅任內嗰度咧，你嗰啲嘅犯罪率高，跟住佢即刻爆翻佢轉頭啊嘛，就係因為你啲民主黨嗰啲人係有得嗰啲嘅暴徒咧喺度嚇搶嘢啊、燒嘢啊、暴動啊、暴亂咯。
係啊，
咪就係你哋啲民主黨係任得嗰啲暴徒咯。你睇 Portland 嗰度幾個月百幾日，你諗下有冇搞 Q 錯㗎？係
啊，係嘛？即刻要有個 law。
唔使話乜嘢，州長啊都話你要派呢個嘅National Guard 入嚟啦，但係市長唔俾啊嘛。所以佢唔知道聯邦制嗰種嘅掣肘，而家好多嘅人咧，尤其是喺美，唔使話係移民過嚟美國，甚至乎喺美國出世嗰啲人根本亦都唔明聯邦法，所以 Donald Trump 佢都講到好明。你一個電話，我半個鐘頭拉晒嗰班人走，我就可以搞掂。
嗰個邊個咧？阿 Trump 咧，嗰個講緊阿 Alex 喺度講緊咧，阿 Trump 咧俾人哋嘅感覺咧就係唔尊重軍人啦咁樣。我其實有樣嘢就係民主黨咧俾人哋感覺咧，佢哋好尊重 KKK 咯，即係我要咁講啦嚇，即係。但係仲有就係佢唔尊重阿 Trump 咧，佢真係好唔撚尊重人嘅，你覺唔覺啊？但係咧，佢會尊重一啲人嘅喎，一啲咧冇權冇勢嘅人，啲人睇唔到，啲人睇翻轉頭，以為佢淨係會對啲有權有勢嘅尊重，但係唔係，佢好撚多人佢都唔撚尊重嘅，同阿 Dennis 差唔多嘅，話知你有錢冇錢係嘛？覺得你啱，佢咪尊重咯；覺得你唔啱，佢就唔尊重啦，就係咁樣簡單嘅啫。
好撚簡單。喂，
係啊，
話你聽，
佢唔係話你有錢冇錢嘅嚇，一班人佢覺得你哋做啲嘢好啊，佢一個監犯係咪放咗佢出嚟之後，係同佢一齊，
你知唔知道啊？
佢都會尊重嘅佢唔係
Donald Trump 啊。同啲黑人嘅罪犯減刑，同埋咧甚至乎大赦嘅數目係多過奧巴馬，好多人唔知道嘅。Donald Trump 其實佢係對好多嘅黑人嘅大赦同埋減刑係多過奧巴馬嘅，所以你唔可以話 Donald Trump 佢係歧視黑人嘅，佢話或者唔理黑人嘅。你諗下喺奧巴馬嘅時代。邊度會有 opportunity zone？ 有冇俾幾多話另外特別加多嘅撥款俾嗰啲 black college 啊？有冇話俾嗰啲 school choice 令到嗰啲嘅黑人嘅父母，令到嗰啲細路仔，就算去私人嘅學校都得啊，唔需要去咁公立學校啊？係咪？係啊。佢完全係冇呢咁樣嘅措施噶嘛。係啊。所以如果你話 Donald Trump 佢係歧視黑人，呢個根本就唔成立嘅。呢個根本係唔成立。我唔理你講乜嘢都好啊，你都係講嘅啫咯。我要睇佢做過啲乜嘢啊嘛，呢啲就佢做過噶啦。咁你做過啲乜嘢？係完全冇做過啊嘛。係啊。
咁好明顯做過嗰啲嘢，咁就啲人就唔會計噶嘛。
同埋咧，你千祈唔好話係即係有錢人咧就要尊重佢啊，要擦佢鞋啊咁樣樣。我可以話一個即係一個實實在在 ，OK。你唔好以為話嗰陣時啲強國人啊嘛，好多有錢啊嘛走過嚟啊嘛要巴結你要結識啊嘛 ，OK。亦都有個好撚有錢嘅強國啊，走個大老細啊 ，OK 又話去嗰陣時同佢去邊啊？去拉記啊，去 Las Vegas 嗰度啊，跟住去食 buffet 啊 ，OK。咁啊，佢請呢個當然啦 ，OK。佢有一樣嘢好撚衰格嘅 ，OK。佢真係去攞嗰啲嘅嗰啲牛扒啊，嗰啲生牛肉出嚟嘅，佢攞把刀。佢淨係切中間嗰嚿就食，跟住其餘剩翻出嚟嘅咧就抌。再攞出嚟嘅時候，佢又係咁樣樣喎，再攞一塊，又係切中間嗰嚿，其餘嗰啲就抌。我嗰陣時咧，我唔撚食，我話知你係幾撚有錢都好啊，我話你以後唔好再嚟揾我。係啊，我屌你老咩？我話鳩知你啊！屌你咩？話你幾撚有錢冇撚用啊 ？OK。係啊。喂，大佬啊！屌你老味臭閪，你係影撚衰我，你知唔知？我同你同台走去食 buffet嘅時候，你影撚衰我，知唔係？即係所以你唔好以為話乜嘢嘅人嚇話屌你老味有錢啊，見高啊拜啊，屌你土豪啊擦佢鞋啊，攞着數啊 ，OK？ 唔係，首先第一，好似我啲咁嘅窮撚 ，OK？ 我都有咁嘅風骨。何況佢係一個億萬富豪，佢使撚俾面呢啲咁嘅臭鳩咩？啱唔啱？佢唔使俾面啊！呢啲，
所以有同埋咧，所以話咧，回應下，可能咧有一啲嘅所謂嘅軍人啦，係嘛？有一啲人做啲嘢根本就唔係咁叻，就唔係做得咁好，有啲，所以
咪好似拜登個仔咯 ，Hunter 咁咯，係啊，佢係俾軍隊 discharge 出嚟嘅。
係啊，所以佢又唔會去有咩？
佢都話咧，咪咯，有咩 respect 啊？都 discharge 出嚟嘅，跟住冇嘢做係咯，讀書又唔成直至到個老豆啊做到副總統嘅時候，先至揾到第一份工係啦。咁你後尾即係串鳩佢咯。
係啊，揾到份好工啊！
跟住又去Ukraine 啊，又去 China， 又去 Russia 嗰度，呢度攞幾百萬，嗰度攞幾百萬啊！屌你咩？
知唔係？
但係咁喎，拜登咧，佢一路講嘅時候，拜登 not true， 我屌你 not true， 有晒新聞出嚟，依家調查緊啦。就係因為傳媒喺度調查緊嘅時候咧，嗰啲咁嘅撲街傳媒咧，就喺度攞你嗰份個 income tax 得個750蚊嘅咋，挑嚟啊！就係要點啊？轉移視線咯。喂，其實我覺得如果佢係750蚊，我覺得係應該要讚添喎，唔係話要鬧佢啊，屌佢啊，應該要讚。因為你 income tax 你冇 income， 咪冇 income tax 咯。佢啲 income， 屌你都全部都係捐鳩晒出去嘅，佢1年1蚊嘅人工嘅啫嘛。嗱，其實我唔知道佢點樣玩嗰啲嘅語言藝術。佢話你個 income tax 咧就750蚊，不過你個 capital gain tax 就俾咗係2600萬啫。因為 tax 有分開好多種噶嘛，啱唔啱啊？你投資賺翻嚟嗰啲係 capital gain tax 嚟噶嘛，你嗰啲 income 賺翻嚟嗰啲係叫 income tax 啊嘛，屌 income tax 係零得添，唔使話乜嘢啊！我好可能我今年嘅 income tax 750蚊都冇啊！屌你今年屌咁撚多個月都冇做過工，啱唔啱先？
係啊，咁我哋同埋咧嗰個退稅嗰個機制咧，好多時我哋呢度啲有錢佬就玩呢樣嘢噶嘛，為咗有時避稅咧，真係佢唔係避稅啊！佢呢一個捐曬出去嘅，
根本係稅例嚟㗎，個稅例可以容許你咁做㗎嘛？
係稅例嚟㗎嘛，同埋咧係可以叫咩啊？deductible 嗰個抵稅個方式個 formula 就喺 Trump 以前就已經定落嚟㗎嘛，唔係話 Trump 上任先至定呢扎嘢，等佢自己可以交少啲稅，係咪？ 所以喺之前噶嘛，咁大佬啊，奧巴馬嗰陣時噶嘛，喺奧巴馬嗰陣時，我利用你哋落嚟就唔係阿 Trump 啦，其實當然係啲會計師好嘢啦，係去請一班會計師可以做到嗰樣嘢啊嘛，而同時咧 IRS 係冇 audit 唔到佢啊嘛，
喂，其實佢係一路都係 audit 緊㗎啦，逢係每一間嘅公司，尤其是嗰啲咁大嘅公司，係 periodically 咧都係會 audit 㗎。呢樣嘢係冇得走㗎。係啊。但係你揾唔揾到佢係呃稅，揾唔揾到佢瞞稅啊？喂，呢樣嘢先犯法啊嘛。喂，我 write off 係合法㗎嘛。
係咯。佢合法 write off 有咩問題啊？
唔係咯，合法 write off
有乜問題啊？冇問題。
我係合法㗎嘛。
但係如果佢係唔合法，咁啊早就已經俾人拉咗啦，好似 Al Capone 咁啦，係嘛？
或者好似係嗰個雞竇 Mustang Ranch 嗰個，哎呀你活對白白啊！屌你老味走佬走咧佢中美洲啊南美洲嗰度開幾間雞竇啦，咁咪留翻個空殼，留翻啲雞喺度，屌你咪聯邦喺度做，咁我嚟做咧，屌你老母開雞竇，屌你老母蝕鳩埋錢添，冚家產啫。
開雞竇都蝕錢係嘛？所以咪話咯，所以根本就其實好多位可以入㗎。
但係咧，首先第一2分鐘係太少，另外有陣時咧就係你個轉數冇咁快嘅，但係佢就係要需要咁短，所以有陣時好似我哋做嗰啲咁嘅節目咁樣，好可能喂個幾鐘頭，啲人亦都唔會話有咁長。大佬睇一場電影咩？我睇場電影我都飛啦，因為電視啫嘛，可以再睇噶嘛，係咪？即係好似我睇嗰個乜鬼嘢咩屍殺列車嗰個半島 The Peninsula， 我睇咗3次㗎，每次我都睇1/3。
要分3次睇。
我睇3次啊，每次睇1/3咯，卒之先睇完啊！哇，嗰套戲真係爛到不得了，同埋好撚悶啊嘛嗰套戲。但有陣時又想睇下個結局係點樣閪法，都要睇佢點。唉，唔想睇㗎，都好得睇。睇咗再睇2/3，唉，都係頂唔順啊，唔肯睇，跟住都係冇，都要睇埋嗰個結局先，即係最後尾唔知幾日之後先睇埋最尾個1/3，唉，真係卒之睇完。其實咧好多好難嘅，即係如果第一集好咧，個續集咧就通常都係唔係咁掂噶啦。除咗一出，例如 The Terminator 咧第一集好，第2集更加好。第2集係講個細佬啊嘛，個僆仔啊嘛，要追殺個僆仔啊嘛。反而佢保護個 Terminator 保護個僆仔喎。嗰個做得好。
咁睇下先啦。跟住咧，咦咁得意，因為仲有其實呢個新嘅 app 咧，加咗個 app 咧，都仲有啲咁嘅。有啲新嘅 feature 嘅，就係咧可以睇到啲人嘅 comment 嘅。但係咧要睇個 comment 咧就好。
而家係咪出緊街嘅？而家
係啊，仲繼續出緊街㗎。我哋繼續講緊係繼續係出緊街嘅。
哇！仲出緊街啊！屌你講咁多粗口添我以為我同你講緊嘢啫，要等我爆咁多粗添喎。
我哋呢度係。絕對係冇語言嘅界限㗎嘛，係咯，我又啱啱放咗個 function， 不過就啲字太細睇唔到，因為其實仲可以咧，啲人放啲 comment 上去咧，可以繼續碌嘅。
同埋你知唔知道點解我嗰個睇係咁遲啊？因為我有幾次係斷咗啊，即係斷咗個 message 啊，你就 send 個 message 上嚟，喂大佬我睇緊㗎喎，跟住我就要整斷咗。我就接你嗰個 message， 跟住接完 message 嘅時候咧，跟住我又要再撥翻揾翻我個 YouTube 喺邊啊！一揾翻佢已經就遲咗咁多啦。
係啊，所以我哋可能要再研究下咯，要再研究下就我等我研究下，應該我相信都有個方法咧，係我哋可以同步嘅，睇下點樣啦嚇。咁我下次咁啊變咗準備下次，我會覺得副總個辯論咧，佢應該會更精彩。不過咧就如佢嗰個辯論嗰個時間咧講，即係每人講2分鐘啊嗰度咧， 就要睇下點樣控制啦嚇。我諗副總嗰度會好睇，比呢兩個老嘢更好睇啊，因為佢哋後生啲啊嘛。
後生啲作為佢轉數快啲嘅，睇下有啲乜嘢嘅絕核嘢 ，OK？
係啊，好多謝咁多位觀眾，我哋今日到此為止啦嚇。
好 ，OK， 拜拜。
咁我哋多謝咁多位觀眾，我哋今日咧個收視啊非常之高啊嚇。咁多謝晒嚇。咁啊，我哋記得我頭先係放咗啲貼紙啊，呢度後邊我個 background 都係 roll 緊咧，其實係我哋嗰啲啲風波嗰啲車卡多 magnet
課金啊，
所以大家咧
幫手資助下台長 OK。
如果你哋譬如話嫌呢啲產品太大件啊，我哋咧好快咧就會有雪櫃嘅 magnet 就會推出嘅啦。咁啊，大家咧就可以放一個支持。咁啊，多謝大家收睇啦，下次再見。
想同你講兩句説話，一陣間收咪同你講。
好咁啊，多謝大家收睇，拜拜。